What's up, JEFusion Fest? This is Phil, and welcome back to another Idol Talk video. So, in the previous Idol Talk video, I have introduced to you guys AKB48 and told you guys, uh, some bits of information about the group, just for you guys to get to know them a little better because they're such a big group. And being such a big group, of course, we're going to talk about members. Now, in the previous video, I actually have mentioned uh, quite a bit about the membership system of AKB48, and this video is actually going to be focused on just that aspect. So, without further ado, let's go on with the video. So, for those of you guys who don't know the group that well, uh, AKB48 is divided into five teams, which are AKB4 and 8. And amongst all the groups that exist that bear the 48 name, they're the only ones that have the five group system. The other sister groups that they have, like SKE48, NMB48, and so on, they have three groups. Now, this actually just applies to SKE, NMB, and HKT48. NGT48 and STU48 don't use this system so far. And technically, there are six teams in AKB48, so the sixth would be a team of trainees, understudies, or how they are called in Japanese would be the Kenkyusei. So again, we have AKB48 and then the Kenkyusei slash trainees. So in order to become part of the group, you of course have to undergo an audition. Now, ever since the group started and up until 2011, the group has been adding members twice a year. And each batch of members that have been added are called generations. So let's say the first batch of girls that joined in 2005 who became the original members of AKB48. So they were the first generation, and the next batch that joined uh, in around 2006 were called the second generation, and after that the third generation, and so on. So what is unique about the earlier generations of AKB48 is that these generations became the basis for the teams that we currently have today. So the first generation members became the original Team A, the second generation members became Team K, and the third generation members became Team B. Now, when the fourth generation came in, they were unofficially called Team 4. However, an actual Team 4 would not come around until about 2011. So, basically, what would happen in during that time is that uh, we do have AKB and 4, and then any succeeding generations would be split into their respective teams. So let's say the fourth generation trainees, for example, if they do pass. So by the way, so once you pass an audition, uh, you're not in the clear just yet. So you do have to spend time as a trainee. Your promotion may vary depending on your performance, depending on your popularity. So some trainees may get promoted sooner, some trainees may get promoted later. And yeah, that's basically the case, at least for the preceding, like fourth generation and beyond. So let's say again, for example, the fourth generation. trainees. So when they are promoted, so they were either promoted into Team A, Team K, or Team B. And by 2012, so Team 4 would be comprised of all former Kenkyusei or trainees from about the ninth to 12th generation. So uh, they were promoted, but instead of splitting them into teams, which would make each team too big, I guess. So it's been decided that they would officially form Team 4 instead. So, as I've mentioned, so there are teams, right? So, each team has about an average like 16 to 25 members. It can be a little higher or lower depending on the amount of, depending on the number of trainees promoted into that team, minus any members who have decided to leave the group at any given time. So, uh, at least that 16 to 25 uh, person team would be actually like at least 16 people are necessary in order for a team to function. So for any stage performance at the theater, so the basis would be 16 members. Now, if at any point, let's say for today, we have a Team A performance stage. So if there are exactly 16 members for Team A, and then let's say one member suddenly is absent for some reason, it can be either due to sickness or schedule conflicts because members do get jobs outside of the group, like for example like a TV guesting, or they could probably be working on a drama or movie, or whatever the case may be. Nonetheless, if one of the team members would be unavailable, they could either pull from another team, or what usually happens is that the trainees or the Kenkyuseis step in. So at least the one Kenkyusei would be uh, uh, studying this particular member's dance routines, positions, and of course memorizing the songs and so on. So as for trainees, they also serve as backup dancers if one song actually calls for backup dancers. So that would be the trainee's main job. So at least until they get promoted, and then they actually perform in front of the people. So that's what usually happens. So Team 8, now Team 8 is unique because they don't usually pull from trainees. Again, I could dedicate an entire video to Team 8 because there's a lot of things about them that make them so unique and so different from the other four teams of AKB48 that uh, in order to talk about them fully, they need a separate video. But to make things short and simple for this one, so Team 8 is comprised of 47 members. So they far exceed the minimal amount. It's actually more than twice the amount needed in order to actually uh, create a stage performance. So uh, each member represents a certain uh, prefecture of Japan. So from Hokkaido to Okinawa, so all the 47 prefectures have one representative. So they really wouldn't have to worry about having enough people. Again, they have more than enough people in order to participate in a performance stage. So, yeah. Again, that's what makes them special. And for Team 8, they don't take in other trainees. So let's say one member decides to leave the group. So let's say a representative from Tokyo decides to leave. Uh, Instead of pulling a Kenkyu, say, uh, they would have to go. They would AKB48 would have to make another audition just to fill that one missing spot. And for Team 8, when uh, selected the candidate has been finalized, uh, they don't. They're no longer treated as trainees, or can you say they are immediately a regular member. That's one of the things that makes Team 8 unique. So, moving on. So, like I've said, so you need six, at least 16 members per team in order to have a regular stage performance. In case of any member or members absent, they would be able to at least pull from the trainees, so they would have enough people. Or if at any point the number of trainees aren't even enough to fill empty spots, they would have other teams to like borrow members from. So it does happen, not only in AKB48, of course, but in some of their sister groups as well. So going back to the audition process, so like I've mentioned, up until 2011, AKB48 would hold auditions twice a year, but since their numbers have been growing so fast and not really a lot of members decide to leave the group, so they've decided to slow down. And in 2012, they've only held an audition once. Also in 2013. So in 2013, AKB48 had its 15th generation of members. So some of the members that are well known in the 15th generation would be the current uh, general manager of AKB48, which is who is Mion Mukaichi, and a former member at this point who's known who's become an actress recently and has her own YouTube channel. So this is Nana Owada. So you might know Nana Owada from Kira Major episode 10. So that would be so she's one of the more notable members of the 15th generation. And AKB48 does have its 16th generation, but they joined in 2016, 3 years after the 15th generation. So that's how big AKB48 has gotten, because uh, there have been so many members that they really had to slow down on the auditions. But again, it doesn't mean that the auditions have ended. Now, I have mentioned that in 2013, the 15th generation members came in. However, it wasn't the only audition that they had. So, in November of 2013, the entire AKB48 group held what was called a draft audition. So, this is an audition that not only AKB48 had, but like all of the sister groups participated as well. So instead of a regular audition, let's say for example, AKB48 is looking for new members uh, to join the group. So they would hold auditions mainly in Tokyo because, of course, that's where AKB48 is, right? So auditions would be held only for that group. If SKE48 wanted to have an audition, for example, they would have their auditions typically in Nagoya. So the draft auditions were kind of different because all girls who wanted to join, so they're pulled together. Like you have a huge pool of hopefuls. Okay, so of course they undergo some training with some vocals, dancing, and sometimes I've seen clips that have like even some acting lessons. So just in case. Now, what's different about the draft auditions is that well, it is very much like a typical, sports draft where teams and groups actually. So each team from each group, so they would have a representative. Usually, the captains of each group would join, and then they would pick a member from dozens of hopeful girls who wanted to join. So let's say if I were to be the captain of Team A, so if I picked from the box a name, that girl would join my team. So for any girl picked from the draft auditions, they would be a trainee or a Kenkyusei that is exclusive to that team alone. Now, this is different from the regular auditions because a regular Kenkyusei can be uh, put into any team. Like they are able to practice with Team A, they are able, or Team K, Team B, Team 4. But if you are a draft trainee, you would be stuck to Team A only. And after some time, well, promotion is somewhat guaranteed actually if you're a draft member. So, to whichever team pulled your name. So again, Team A, for example, you would eventually be part of Team A after usually a few months. So not that long, I think, because in some Kenkyu case, so in some trainees' case, they could take years. So a recent example would be my Honma from AKB48's 16th generation. So she joined in 2016, right? So I've mentioned earlier. She was only promoted recently into Team 4, if I remember correctly, during the AKB48 15th anniversary. So again, it took 4 years for such a trainee to get promoted into a team. So yeah, your promotion really depends on many things. So if you do want to get promoted faster, you really have to do your best to get noticed. However, well, draft auditions in the AKB48 group entirely have been done 3 times. So the first one is in 2013, the second one is in 2015, and the most recent one was in 2018. So again, the auditions for the groups have not really stopped, but again, in the case of AKB48, it did slow down just because of the number of members that they currently have. Again, AKB48 alone has more than 100 members currently. That 48 is just a misnomer. Okay? It it doesn't mean that there are exactly 48 girls in the group. Again, just to be clear. So that is the membership process alone, and how teams function. Now, as for performances, uh, typically there would be like songs that are unique to each team. So this is part of their like signature, I guess. So one thing that AKB is unique. So like Team A has its own songs, Team K has its own songs, Team B has its own songs. So you have original stages for them, and of course, all the girls will have to practice and learn for each team. So they would have to practice their own team songs and performances. And now, another thing that's different. So while the original members have been assigned to, each team, like I've said earlier, the original members, so the first generation became Team A, the second generation became Team K, and the third generation became Team B. But in 2009, uh, th- so during a concert, it was announced that all members would be shuffled. Uh, so this has been done about for more or less every 3 years. So in order to keep things fresh, I guess. So some who uh, members have been moved from team to team every time there's a shuffle. So again, they're not stuck to just one team, but I guess it gives them more flexibility. So because they've already learned, let's say, I am a member of Team K, but after the shuffle, I was moved to Team B, so I would have to learn all of Team B's songs and performances. But in the case that uh, there's an emergency and they need an emergency member, like let's say Team K, right? So a few members were absent, and then they need to pick a replacement, or like a member to fill in for an empty spot. So I could volunteer maybe, or I would be picked to join this specific Team K performance, and I would have the advantage because I already know Team K songs and dances while also having the knowledge of Team B. So, I guess that gives members more flexibility in case of emergency. So, yeah. Uh, as for songs, now AKB48 sometimes releases albums, and in those albums there are specific theme songs. So uh, of course they would also have their own unique music videos, and that's actually interesting to watch. So yeah. Now I could probably go on back and forth, but I think for this video alone, I've spent 20 minutes, more than 20 minutes already. But this is just talking about how AKB48 members work. So how their membership system works, how girls can become members, how teams perform, and so on. So I know some parts may have been confusing to you guys. I'm sorry, I'm not the best at explaining things, but this is all I know. Now, if you guys want to see like a complete list of members, I will leave a link down in the description below. Now, this source that I found seems to need some updating, but yeah, and this is the closest I can find to a comprehensive list of members of AKB48, and uh, this is also my source of information for, for mostly, but yeah, I will leave it in the description so you guys can see it as well. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. Please do leave a like, comment, share this video, subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell so you get the latest from JEFusion. This is Philip, and I'll see you in the next Idol Talk. Bye!